Hello, it's Sonia here, The Pretty Stitch. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time joining me, I'm so happy to have you here. So today is Tuesday, and that means it's Tunisian Tuesday, where we either feature a Tunisian stitch pattern or a Tunisian pattern of an actual object, but we are doing a stitch pattern today. And I've already gotten started on my first row. This is the setup row. I am using a J hook or 6mm hook. And I have some cotton or worsted weight yarn right here. So row 1 is your setup row. So for this stitch pattern, you will need to chain a multiple of 2, and I will show you a clip on how to get started with this stitch pattern. So we're going to get started on row 1. So this first row is our setup row. So in our second chain from our hook, I like to work in the back bump of the chain. So I'm just turning it over right there in the back bump. I'm going to insert my hook in there and pull up a loop. And if you've never done Tunisian crochet before, I do have a whole playlist that goes over the basics to get you started. And with Tunisian crochet, each row is worked in 2 parts. So the first part of the row is the forward pass, where you are putting your stitches on your hook like I'm doing right now. And then the second part is called the return pass, and that is where you take your stitches off, and each part equals 1 row. Okay, so there is our forward pass of row 1. So the amount of stitches that you chained, you should have the same amount in your hook. So I chained 14, so I have 14 loops on my hook. But if you chained a different amount, then obviously you would have a different amount of loops on your hook. So let's work on the return pass, where we're going to yarn over, pull through 1 loop, yarn over, pull through 2 for the rest of the row. Alright, so there is row 1. So we are back, so we have row 1 completed. So now we're going to work row 2, and this is a 2-row repeat for this stitch pattern. So let's begin row 2. We are going to insert our hook in Tunisian simple, but we're not going to pull up a loop. We're just going to insert it. Now we are going to work, so we're going to work in the next stitch, but not in the vertical bar. So behind the vertical bar of the next stitch, so here is that next stitch right here. Behind it, there is a loop right back there. So here's that vertical bar, and here is that loop. We're going to insert our hook in that loop. So I'm inserting my hook in that loop, and now we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. So we still have the correct amount of stitches, we just didn't yarn over and pull up a loop with this first stitch that we worked. And we're going to repeat that across. So insert your hook in the next vertical bar, and then in the next stitch in that little bump, pull up a loop. And do that all the way across. Now I'm trying to do a yarn over in the vertical bar because it's habit, so I'm trying to nope, don't do that. Okay, so I'm at the end, and I am going to work in that stitch that looks like a chain and pulling up a loop. Now my beginning chain, I chained 12. So whatever amount you chained, you should have those same amount of loops on your hook, and I do have 12, so we're good to go. Now we're going to work the return pass. You're going to yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2 for the rest of the row. Alright, so there is row 2. So row 3 is going to be similar to row 2, but it's the opposite. So we're going to work behind that first vertical bar right away in that loop. So right back there, we're going to pull up our loop. So we're going to yarn over, pull up that loop. Now we're going to insert our hook in the next vertical bar, just pop it right in, not pull up a loop. And then the next stitch here, we're going to go in that loop behind. So it's a little tricky, it can be a little tight. So I do suggest with this stitch pattern to have a more relaxed hand and maybe using slightly thinner yarn compared to a hook. So a J hook is a little bit larger. And you'll notice too with this row when you're working in the vertical bars, one is very long and one is short. Okay, so I'm at my second to last stitch. We just insert our hook in there. We don't pull up a loop, but we will work in that last stitch. That looks like a chain, and then we yarn over and pull up a loop. So we should still have 12 loops on our hook. And we do indeed, so we're going to work those off. So what you'll need to do is you're just going to repeat rows 2 and 3. Okay, so here is my swatch. I've worked 11 rows. And you can either end on a row 2 or row 3, it is okay. And now we are just going to bind off. So binding off is just finishing off your work. And I do have that in the playlist in case you're interested. And we're just going to work Tunisian simple stitch bind off all the way across. So binding off is like a combination of Tunisian crochet and regular crochet because you're working in like a Tunisian stitch and then you're finishing off with a slip stitch, which is in regular crochet. And make sure you work in that last stitch there. That looks like a chain. Doing your bind off. And there you go. So even though we are basically working in Tunisian simple, this stitch pattern lays relatively flat, which is very nice. And I do think it would work well for a variety of Tunisian crochet projects. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.